running a business is difficult. And people don't realise how difficult it is until they've maybe got themselves involved.
Here's the thing, you don't always need to have a goal. So many people think that they need to have a goal to be working towards all the time. It's okay to fall in love with the boring and the mundane to get to a certain point, but I think the best thing that you could ever do is review the last 12 months of your life.
All good? Good, Johnny, yeah? Happy enough?
Ready to rock.
Welcome to today's episode of the Measuring Success podcast from myself, Ben, and we are delighted to have a guest in today, the one and only Jonny Pierce. Thanks very much for coming on. So I want to give the likes of Jonny a little bit of an opportunity to go down the route of what he thinks success is. I think that a lot of people find that success is measurable by many different things, and I think as a business owner, sometimes that success can be a variable in our life that changes seasonally, potentially also on a yearly basis, depending really what's going on in your personal life as well. Would you sort of agree to that?
Yeah, I think everyone's metrics of success are different and they will change over time. Like you say, I think sometimes a big life situation will come up or something will happen in your life that changes your metrics of success. And I think inside our program, I'm working with people who have been hugely successful in business, and then they maybe got to a point where the health element of things maybe is kind of, they've dropped the ball in that area of their life because they haven't really had it as a priority because they've been pushing business so much. So that's whenever their measure of success has changed. And maybe they've had a kid or something and they're like, oh, I actually need to be healthy and be around so that I can actually see my kid grow up and do all these things. So yeah, and the biggest thing that they're chasing, and what I believe is important in my own life and in their lives, is multi-dimensional success and achieving success in every area of your life.
I think you're totally right on that, Jonny. So Jonny is a health and performance coach and the founder of Built for Better Business. He helps business owners and high performers look, feel, and perform better than they ever have before. He also offers a unique solution to corporate and health and well-being. Pretty good wee blurb you have for yourself there, Jonny.
I've practiced that many times.
But I think you're totally right. You know, as a business owner over the last sort of 10 years, that I found that I've challenged myself and I've valued different things at different times, that I thought that's what I thought success was. Do you know, I thought success was, oh, I've made a bit of money this year, so I'll buy myself a watch. I made a little bit more money this year, I bought myself a car. And as you go through that journey, I think you learn a lot about yourself, more so than anything, rather than what you're sort of aiming for as a successful picture. Is it the fact that a lot of people think that they have to portray to be successful if you have a business? Or is it the opposite aspect of, I have a business, I drive a 10-year-old car, but ultimately I'm happy with where my life is? And I think a lot of it comes down to individually what you find is your driving force. Individually what you find is ultimately the end goal of where you want to go and what you want to be. And I think as we've touched on earlier, a lot of people do find that especially those who are business owners, that it is a seasonal thing. It is yearly. And I think what we want to take this episode on from is we'll take it all the way back to the start for Jonny Pierce. You know, so you've been a PT, or well, originally you were a personal trainer. You know, just would you say like a traditional just personal trainer, going to the gym, working in the leisure centre in Lisburn. You know, just a traditional sort of, we call them a council worker. Yeah. And, you know, you could have just stayed in that path and just been on the minimum wage that they were paying you and, you know, seeing clients based on the council's agenda, you know, helping the over 50s, over 60s, you know, being mobile. And ultimately, I think that's where your sort of journey maybe started.
Yeah, I think, you know, if I take it right back, so I was working in the leisure centre part-time. I was studying sports coaching at university, so I was juggling all these different plates, and then I had also started like personal training on the side. So it was almost like these three things. So I had this part-time contract in the leisure centre, I had this kind of part-time university degree, and then I had this like other kind of part-time business, and it was kind of a bit of a journey, and I got to a point where I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and then I took on a full-time contract at the leisure centre, and I was going to be working 40 hours per week, and at this point I was busy, the busiest I'd ever been. I was doing so much and juggling so many different things, and back then my metrics of success were different than what they are now, but back then it was about how many hours could I put in each and every single week, and at that age it's fine, you know, you're young.
What do we talk, 18, 19, 20?
Yeah, so younger years, you're just like, right, how much can I actually do? And you're paid by the hour, so you know, right,
if I do 60 hours, I get X. And
100%.
that's what you find successful. And that's such a very small period in your life, is for those 3 to 5 years, that's what you thought it was.
Yeah.
And as you moved from that, so you were in the leisure centre, and then the next steps for you was that, did you then go out onto a private level and work in an independent gym?
Yeah, so I kind of took the plunge, left the full-time contract at that point. So between times I'd taken a full-time contract, and then I'd finished university and all those different things. So kind of started in a local gym and was just personal training, and then kind of just the same thing happened. It was like, how many hours can I get into a week? And you almost get to a point where you're just overworking for the sake of overworking. But at that point, I needed to build my reputation. I needed people to know me. I needed to produce results so that I could then build authority in the marketplace, essentially, in that area, so that I would be the go-to guy in Lisburn. If someone wanted personal training, they would go to Jonny Pierce, and that's exactly what happened. But it was because I put in as many hours as I possibly could, but it wasn't necessarily for the financial reward. It was just like, how many results can I produce? Because at the end of the day, people are judged based off the results that they provide for their clients or their customers or whatever it may be.
And again, so you still had moved from one location to another location, and the metrics were still, how many hours could I do? You know, so you were still very much focusing on, well, like I have, you know, I'm working 100 hours a week, and my clients are seeing me over 100 hours, and I find that, you know, as you said, that I'm being successful because I'm so busy, you know, and sometimes I think that can be this can be measurable for a lot of people. Like, busy is seen as successful. Oh, like, look at them, they're never sitting down watching Netflix. But again, I think transitionally it happens that someone will value that as successful, and I think, you know, as a young man, we all valued that. You know, I was very similar. You know, working. I was working in corporate, that sort of age range, and I thought being busy and successful was doing qualifications and, you know, working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and exactly the same sort of pattern was forming. And, you know, ultimately, you know, as I transitioned to another stage of my life, then again those dynamics start to shift. And then eventually, if we go back to where you were at that point, that was in your early 20s. And when did the light bulb kind of turn on and you started moving towards the online side of things?
I think, you know, even on the busy metric, like, I'm still probably busier than ever, and it's something that I'm working on and trying to build. And like you said there, often in the past I maybe wore busy as a badge of honor, and it's like, oh, if you're busy, you're doing well, but there's more to business and success and moving forward than being busy. But I suppose the light switch really was whenever I started coaching people online. I realized I was having a bigger impact. I was actually changing their life on a deeper level. I was able to provide them more support. So I could have beasted out like 60 hours on the gym floor and then didn't have a moment to breathe outside of that. So the client seen me for that hour, and they maybe had 2 sessions with me per week, and then they never seen me until the following week. So it was being able to realize that once I started first coaching these people, I was like, oh, well, I'm actually able to support this person way more, and we're focused on way more than just getting in shape. And at that point, the measure of success of the training was, how lean can you get? How much muscle can you build? And now the metrics of success of the actual program are so different, because it's like, right, you're a business owner, you want to reduce your stress, you want to improve your energy, you want to improve your performance, you want to lose a little bit of weight, you want to feel a little bit better about yourself. So that was kind of probably a transitional period where I started to realize, right, well, there's more value to be added, and also people value being part of an actual group. They value being part of a community. They value kind of meeting other like-minded people that are on the journey with them. So I think that was probably a realization. And I remember holding one of my very first community events, and there was 50 of our clients came. I thought that was amazing. Like, everyone was chatting to each other, and like they were talking about their journey. They were sharing successes, wins, struggles, challenges. And then I realized, right, this is what I need to focus on. I need to provide more than just stand beside someone as a traditional personal trainer will and count their reps and hand them their weights, because our clients don't necessarily want that. They want to be supported on a deeper level and actually go through a transformational experience and actually be coached, because coaching for me back then wasn't going to be standing and counting someone's reps.
And that's what the traditional personal trainer is / was. And there has been that rise on every sort of personal trainer trying to get to the level that, you know, you've got yourself. And, you know, when you had that moment, did that ultimately unlock the fact that you wanted to move all your existing clients to online?
Probably at that point, yes. And then obviously COVID played a big factor. So that was a spanner in the works. So at the minute, like, let's paint a picture of pre-COVID. So
early 2020.
Yeah, early 2020. So late 2019, we're working kind of 60% online, 40% in person. And then the people in person, obviously COVID hit, but already even pre-COVID, I had the conversation with them and said, hey, look, guys, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it.
So you were kind of slightly ahead of the curve.
I'm just purely by luck, to be honest. Like, I had built the foundations, and then as soon as like lockdown started getting announced, I booked the nearest available videographer and filmed every home workout that I knew under the sun, you know, just to kind of before the lockdown actually hit. But to answer your question, was that the moment that everything changed? I would say yes. And it was actually having this event and having all these people together. And I actually sat back and thought, right, these people are here because of me. And I actually gave myself a pat on the back for once and was like, oh, that's actually really good.
And you say you give yourself a pat on the back for once. Is that, are you heavily self-critical then?
I think most high performers will be. And for me, I probably am my own worst critic. So I'll do a talk and everyone will give you loads of positive feedback, but I know myself, I'd be like, oh, well, I could have done this part better. I could have done that part better. And maybe I'm appearing on this podcast and I'll be driving home today and I'll be like, oh, well, I didn't get that point across. I didn't share that point. So I think because you've normalized high performance, essentially, you're in this position where you constantly strive towards that. And maybe you're having an off day. You haven't slept as well the night before. Your food's been different on a set day. So your performance is slightly different, or maybe external circumstances have been up against you on a set week, like going into your business week, because business comes with its own challenges. So I think I'm probably my own worst critic, but I think it's for good reason. Yes, there's elements of you need to be kinder to yourself from time to time, and I am, but equally I want to be better, and that's what's in the name of the program, Built for Better Business. And if I'm not becoming better, then
I think you're right. And you know, like, you can, as a business owner, you do have to be very self-critical, and then especially when you start adding a team into that as well, you have to look at yourself as a business owner and then also a leader. And that's one of the things that I've learned is that over the last sort of few years is, you know, I always use the analogy of I want to react a certain way, but I can't, because that's not what as a leader I should be doing. And you know, that's where where it all comes back to then your initial response to a lot of things is how you feel about yourself effectively. And you know, it goes back, and you know, it'll be very similar to yourself, very self-critical, but I can't be self-critical to any of my team, or I can't be overly critical to any of my team, because ultimately they won't stick around, you know, because you're constantly on them for making a small little minute mistake. And I think, you know, for a lot of business owners, there is that underlying we'll call it an issue that is sort of keeping the fire burning. And would you say that it's very difficult to satisfy Jonny Pierce?
Great question. And I think I have got better with this over time. Obviously, when you set out to achieve anything, whether it's starting a business, taking part in a fitness journey, you have a goal, and then you achieve the goal, and then the goalposts move, and then you constantly just move forward. Or you maybe have some dream in your head, but you don't actually know what the dream the reality of achieving that dream is. So someone might have an aspiration of growing this huge business, but also everything that you go and strive to do, there's a consequence off the back of that. So whenever it comes to fulfillment, I used to look for fulfillment in the wrong things. So it was, you know, what you shared earlier, buy the things, and then I got the things and I realized
And they did nothing.
this doesn't
Yeah.
change anything. So like, even like to touch on your point earlier, it's like some of the most successful people I know will drive in a 20-year-old car with 150,000 miles on the clock because they have no need to prove themselves to other people. So I used to feel the need to prove to other people that I was successful, whereas now I'm like, I'm happy. I know I'm content.
Do you think that's a journey that happens to every business owner or a successful person? Oh, we call them successful people. I think I've experienced it myself, like, because I think ultimately we think that that's what we need. But I think that the truth behind it is once you do it, you then realize, like, that's not what I need, you know. And I think I would say, you know, you've worked with different business owners over the last few years, and, you know, I've engaged with highly successful people in that time as well, and a lot of them do the same. They go down the same path. Every single one of us has some form of taste of success goes down the route of, I'm going to buy a Rolex. I'm going to buy myself a sports car. And then what quickly happens is they sell the Rolex, they sell the sports car because it's doing nothing for them. And I think that's when you're sort of going on that extra journey as well, is you're trying to discover what is the fulfillment center for you. And as a business owner, we don't really get the time to do that. Because I try my best to celebrate the small wins, but I'm looking at the wins and going, okay, like, we've had a good month. Like, this time last year, we've beat that by a couple of £1,000. But I'm going, yeah, but one customer said this, and it's not perfect, you know. And I think, you know, in your line of business, you're probably looking at that as well. As you've just said, you'll run an event, and then you're going, oh well, like, like, everybody showed up that said they were going to show up, but I didn't like this. And I think that's ultimately, do you think that's something that is built into the sort of type of person who will become a business owner? Like, I was speaking to Josh, who's off camera there, and, you know, ultimately we every business owner almost has a identity very similar to each other, and from that we're looking at, what do we do with that identity? You know, because not everybody is built to be a business owner. Like, a lot of people who start a business should never own one. And they've started it and they've tasted success. They've got themselves in a scenario, and you're just looking at them externally going, how have you got there? You know, because you're useless from an external point of view. But some people start a business through no choice of their own because they can't work with other people. They can't work in a corporate environment. And I think ultimately as well is, you know, did you ever see yourself when you first started in that young personal trainer in the leisure centre in Lisburn? Did you ever see yourself in the shoes that you are now?
No. And if you had told me that whenever I was working on that gym floor, I could barely speak in front of one client, never mind speaking in front of 200 people at once. So I don't think I ever thought I would be where I am today, but equally it's a reflection on everything that I've done. And on the business owner journey, like you said, about like how certain people are maybe wired in a certain way to become a business owner, I think often it's the people that aren't as naturally gifted end up becoming a business owner because they're willing to actually be like, right, well, I'm not necessarily the smartest in the room in school.
There's a quote that I've came across a couple of times online. I can't remember who said it, but it's business owners are C students who hire A students.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that happens quite a lot because, you know, like, in my businesses, like, I'm not the best at customer service. Do you know what I mean? But I'm really good in the furnace, in the boiler room, and I know how the business works, and it's just a game of numbers for me. But I think ultimately, as a business owner, like, I never seen myself being a business owner at 18. You know, I kind of wanted to go down that corporate route, to be honest. I wanted to go down and work in finance. That's kind of what I wanted to do. But then I didn't like the authority. and I didn't like the hours. And then I kind of was just job hopping for a certain length of time, and then I eventually found myself working in finance and sort of small businesses and stuff like that. But the driving force for me, and I think sometimes, like you've kind of done something very similar. You've been employed and you've got yourself to a certain stance, and you were self-employed, and you've been self-employed for probably more than 5 years now. But I think there is a pathway for a lot of business owners who are never satisfied if they're working for someone. Like you probably were never satisfied working in the leisure centre, and that's why you kind of wanted to strive to work for yourself.
I think I was though. Like,
but you were satisfied
time,
at
I
that
actually
time.
was
Yeah.
satisfied working there at that time, and then I think until I started the business and I had evidence of actually working for myself coming true, because I remember absolutely bricking it. Whenever you're going to hand in your notice and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to take this business full time. And I remember one colleague, and I'll never forget it. She said to me, I'm sure I'll see you in a few months whenever your business fails. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So
I'll
9
prove you
years,
wrong.
9 years later. And it's sometimes the wrong things that drive you forward, but it's sometimes nice to be like, well, 9 years later, look where I am and look where you are. And there's nothing wrong with working in the leisure centre. I enjoyed it, but it's the naysayers that actually drive you forward, and it's the naysayers that actually tell you, right, well, I don't believe that you can do it, and then you actually drive forward. And
Was
that's
there a
for the
trigger
wrong
point?
reason.
Was there a trigger point to cross you over to going self-employed?
I think I had a target of like 6 months run rate of savings in my account.
Okay.
To be like, right, I can
you
pay
had a
my bills
safety
for
net.
6 months, and like I was only like, I started my business when I was like full time at 20, so the bills weren't monumental at that point, but equally I had enough to get me by. And then I was like, right, now I have security for the next 6 months if I don't earn a penny, which is probably unlikely. But if I don't, I can go back to the leisure. And the frame, I always looked, and maybe there's someone listening to this that like wants to, leave a job that they hate, for example, and they're scared to do it. But the biggest thing is I'd say in this position where until you do it, you're not going to have any confidence. So confidence comes after doing the thing. So maybe it's like, oh, hey, I really want to speak in public, or here, I really want to do a podcast.
Yeah.
Until you do it, and afterwards, then you get the confidence from.
I think you're so right. I think a lot we have I see a lot. I work a lot with new business owners with some programs within the council, and I see it a lot. We have this negativity bias inbred into us as Northern Irish people. We have this fear of, I can't go and do that, but why not? Because I'm scared of what someone I went to school with 10 years ago will think of me. And you're trying to get over that hump, because I would say everybody who is in that scenario, that they maybe want to go and do public speaking, or they want to put themselves out there a little bit more, there is that little squirrel in their head going, oh, Jonny from third year is going to watch this and think you're stupid.
Yeah.
And that's in your head playing constantly. But ultimately, I think we sort of need to get over that as a business owner, as someone who wants to try and challenge themselves and do something different. Because if you don't go and give it a go, you just won't know. And I've been very fortunate in my businesses that I've got involved in, that they have been successful, but I didn't know what I was walking into. My businesses are very different to yours. Yours is very sort of service led in regards to it's Jonny's programs and he's running X, Y, and Z. Mine are very much customer focused. My customers come to my business and they get the service that they're after. But I didn't think at 32 that I was going to, or let me see, I was 30 at this stage, 31, that I was going to be running a team, well, at that stage, 4 businesses, and a team across the 4, a team of 35. I had no idea how to run a team. Do you know what I mean? But one of the things that I did at that stage was I started recognizing in myself that I needed to figure out how to run teams effectively. And I'll circle back to the question that comes from this. One of the best things that I ever did was started installing structure within my businesses. And I'm a big believer in trying to make as the business owner, just make myself less and less involved constantly. And that was one of the best things I ever did for my business. And I did that for about 3.5 years ago, and I haven't looked back, because what it allowed me to do was it freed up all this extra time that I was able to focus on growing the business, making sure my team was able to be satisfied in their workplace. And has there ever been a decision that you've made that you were very reluctant to make in your business, but then it became actually one of the best decisions that you ever made?
Yeah, probably like you say, I 4 years ago hired my first full-time team member.
And that's a big move.
Big move, scary move, and it's like, wow, there's someone else now in this business that now has to be paid, and I need to make sure that I can make this work because there's someone else relying on this now, and there's another family involved.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that was probably, I was reluctant to do it, and I probably potentially could have done it sooner, but I didn't do it because of the fear of like, whoa, what if this adds too much pressure, too much stress to my life? And now I'm coaching business owners that have hundreds of staff, and I've realized that, you know, that's much more difficult than what I'm currently doing. But that was kind of something I was reluctant to do. And then I also realized that this could create more time for me away from the things that I don't like. Because I think when you're not a business, there's going to be elements of, you have to wear multiple hats, but also there's going to be an element that you don't like, and there's going to be an element that you love. And bringing in Matthew we were able to realize, right, we're two different people. So you really like doing this thing, and I really like doing this thing. So you can do that thing, and I'll do this thing, and then together we can build this thing. And then it was like, wow, that's actually
How long did you
really
sit
well
on that for before you made that
I
decision?
probably sat on it for months, and the only thing that created a little bit of urgency for me was he was a client on the program at the time, and he had told me that he'd been offered a new job, and I was like, oh, flip, I wanted you to work for me. And then that just made it
so you'd already sort of cherry picked him in your head.
Yes, I had decided that was the person that I wanted, because he was unbelievable on the program. He did everything to the T, and he was really committed. He was really consistent. He was a really great guy. And I was like, all right, well, you would be a really great coach, and I could train you up to do what you needed to do. And then I was like, oh, flip, you know, you've been offered this job, and like, you know, so then I arranged a coffee with him. I was like, look, hey, can we meet up? And then I presented the opportunity. I actually think I presented him the opportunity straight away on voice note.
Right.
Like, so the most amateur hire
Don't
ever.
go anywhere. Like, I want you to work for me.
Yeah, and then I was like, hey, look, and then at that point, then at least he had two options. So you can go down this route and be employed by this, or have like a job that you actually have fulfillment through, you know.
But here's the thing, like, that was also a big risk for him.
Oh yeah.
Do you know, because like you were just a one-man band at that
Big
stage,
time.
and you were his PT, and he didn't know the innards of your business, and you know, like, he's walking away from probably a job that had pure stability. Absolutely. And he's walking into the kind of unknown that Jonny could turn around and be like, I can't afford you in 6 months.
Yeah.
And then he's lost that opportunity. So probably you maybe had not convinced, but you know, you, over the time of working with him as a client, you'd built up enough confidence in him over you. Yeah. And you know, it kind of just came at the right time for you.
Yeah, I was building that trust. And
because how long was he a client for you?
So he must have been a client for about a year, but I kind of knew him through some mutual circles and football and stuff before. And then, yeah, he had told me this, and that just threw a spanner in the works, because I had thought, right, maybe in 12 months I could afford to hire you.
It forced the acceleration of growth for you.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was great, and it's been unbelievable. Matthew's unbelievable. He's a great addition to the program. Every client always says it to me. Really appreciate Matthew's support. So it's brilliant, and it's the best thing probably that I did. I was reluctant with, first of all, and then I did in my business that helped.
See, one of the reasons I like to ask that question is because I think there is a pinnacle moment, you know, and one of my friends had asked me, like, what was the most influential thing you have done in your business? And when he asked me that, like, I sort of looked at him going, I don't have an answer, because as a business owner, there's so many hats, as we'll call them, so many bits and pieces that you're constantly doing, and you don't know if it's actually causing any massive influence, but you don't know whether or not, like, that decision actually did cause the influence or did cause the result of something else, you know. And I think one of the most powerful things as business owners that we can do is spend that time on ourselves very, very wisely and reflect and try and figure out, you know, you've probably contemplated that, you know, choice multiple times since you hired that first person, going, you know what, like, I'm really glad that I made that choice. And that could have been the catalyst for your business to go from, you know, performing to high performing. And that's where I think, you know, if it was to throw back to that specific time that he had told you that he was late, like you had a new job, and he probably was saying that he couldn't actually continue the program anymore. What made you jump at that? Because as a business owner, we jump at opportunities. You know,
I think it's because I'd thought about it for some time, and I knew it wasn't a shiny object, because you'll be presented with shiny objects every single week in business. Hey, you should invest in this business. Hey, you should do this. Hey, you should do that. And it's about understanding and determining what do you actually need right now. And at that point, the volume of numbers, we needed more support, and I needed the right support. I needed someone that I could trust. I needed someone that was actually going to have been through the process, so we knew exactly what it was going to look like and what it does look like, so they could actually help other people on the journey that he had been through.
Did you think you had already made that decision subconsciously?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
100%.
6 months prior?
100%. I just hadn't
It hadn't
the
actually,
courage to actually say it, but then he said it, and then I had to say it.
Yeah. It's interesting that, because, you know, like probably my manager in one of my businesses, like he's probably watching this, because he's a few of them have already discovered it, like online, and they're just saying it's brilliant. But, you know, we circle back to a story that the reason that I now have a manager in one of the businesses, because again I was reluctant to make that decision, and we never really had someone in there. But at that stage, it kind of was just the right time for it to happen, because I had been on that journey of, you know, I had acquired the business a year before, and I was working, you know, 50, 60, 70 hours a week to try and get it to perform, like, because I was the person in the boiler room, like putting fuel into the boiler all the time, making sure that the business was functioning. But what I had never really figured out was, like, why was I so busy? You know, why was I, you know, dealing with X, Y, Z all the time, instead of, you know, focusing on the business? And, you know, the fella who came on board, like he only came on part-time, but he, after about 6 months, he kind of was like, can I run this place for you? And it was never really part of the blueprint, because I was like, well, I could kind of run the coffee shop myself, like I'd maybe do a few shifts here and there, blah blah blah. But the more I thought about it, when it was presented, I kind of looked at it going, well, like, if he freed up 40 hours of my week, I could focus on X, Y, and Z and growing the business. And then the more I thought about it and kept, like, this was a decision over a sort of 4 or 5 week period, I was like, this would be really good. Because ultimately you looked at it and you go, what if he walked away now? What if he walked away at the very start? And I said, no, it's all right. Just, like, I'll do this on my own. Like, you can still work here and all that, but I'll just do it myself. But the more that question was asked internally in my head, I was going, no, like, I really like him. He's a great asset. He understands the business. And I think ultimately when you find those assets in your business, you have to try and hold on to them as much as possible, you know. And it's very difficult managing staff. Do you know what I mean? Because you have to look at it two ways. You're having to be business Jonny, business Ben, and then also the personal side of it. But you have to always sort of, as the business leader, you always focusing purely on, right, the business is at this level. I have to make sure everything is balanced. And by bringing a staff member in is a massive, massive choice. But that would be probably similar to yourself, was bringing that key person into the business at the right time that has made it effectively the success it is. And you would probably hate to ever lose Matthew. Do you know what I mean? But again, there's another question that is something that's been on my mind. And, you know, like, I've had probably over the years 50, 60 staff across the last sort of 10 years. And I do still find that there's a point where staff can be no more. Do you know? Because we can't go anywhere as business owners. The staff can outgrow your business, and then what would your attitude be in those scenarios? You know, if worst scenario, a staff member turns around and goes, you'd be like, and they're really important, they go, yeah, I think I'm going to move on. Do you think that's a feeling of the business owner themselves, or do you think that's just they've done their bit and then they're moving on to their next? Because you'll never get another Matthew.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. There's always going to be a journey. There's going to be an area that you kind of need help with and you bring help with, and then they learn the new role and they do the new role, and then they're like, what's next? And I think as the business owner, it's providing opportunity to do new things and to be promoted and to be, because there is people that will stay in a business for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and they'll stay in the business till the business ends. And that's great, and that's loyalty, and that's someone that's been rewarded for their loyalty. And I think the biggest thing with someone like Matthew is over time he's rewarded for his loyalty, and he's provided with more opportunity and more kind of chance to explore new roles within the business. But it's my duty of care to lead him, to inspire him, to help him understand
keep it motivated.
He is in the safest place that he possibly could be. And also, like you say, motivation, like he's a really motivated person as it is, so that helps. But yeah, it's just kind of stretching someone's vision and making them realize that there is a future in this, there is opportunity in this, we are growing, we are developing, and that is going to be, thanks to your support, that this is going to happen.
You touched on something there about motivation. I find that, again, motivation changes over time. What would you say is the motivation surrounding your business, or even just Jonny Pierce right now? Like,
I think at the minute it's about like just pursuing my potential. I've probably achieved everything externally that I ever dreamed of far before that I ever thought I would. So, all those different things that happened over time, they've happened, and I've done them, and that's great, and I've achieved them probably earlier than I planned. I'm 28 now, but
that comes across as a little bit negative. It's on yourself. You're it's that old age aspect of the imposter syndrome, as we all kind of suffer a little bit, because again, we've achieved these things and we feel as if we shouldn't have this early.
Yeah, I think what motivates me now, going back to that question, is just the ability to actually impact and change more lives. And the more lives that I can change, that's impacting their families and the people around them and their kids if they're showing up better. So that's probably the driving force. And also the other driving force is just seeing what I'm capable of, because it's just this pursuit of my potential, and my potential really is unlimited. So it's being able to actually pursue that and explore, essentially, right, what is Jonny Pierce capable of? Where can he actually go? And 10 years from now, you can't really plan for it because you don't know where I'm going to be, but you can still have this constant opportunity to show up every single day and become better and get better and chase those 1% that everyone talks about.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. The success of your program is not numbers on how many people come in and out. It's more so, has it actually made a difference? And like being involved in the program over the last couple of years, like I've seen a difference in myself. Mostly it's mostly on the aspect of the encouragement of figuring out what is the driving force for me as a person. Like, and putting structure in place has been massive for me. I've lost that structure for a long time. But you're as you're saying, like the success of your program right now is that your clients are getting results.
100%. And they're like, my business is only going to develop and grow if the clients get results, because at the end of the day, working in the Northern Irish market, like, yes, we're a mix of like online and in-person coaching and personal development, but word's going to spread. So if you do a bad job, people are going to tell other people. And if you do a good job, people are going to tell other people. So that's the beauty of this, is I have to be so focused, and Matthew has to be, and the team have to be so focused on service delivery, because we know that's going to be the determining factor as to whether the business grows and develops. But that's just fundamentally from a business perspective. But just from being an ethical human being, I want to get someone results, because at the end of the day, they're investing in their ability to achieve the result, and they're trusting me and Built for Better Business to help them do that. So it's vital, and it's my duty and responsibility really to fulfill on that and do whatever I need to do that, because we always believe that coaching the person and not the process is the biggest and the most important thing, because there, of course, it's a process that I've been educated on over the years, and it's almost like this tick box exercise, but every person's different, every circumstance is a different scenario. So it's being able to meet them where they're at and give them what they want when they need it, and actually drive them towards their actual desired outcome.
So your sort of long-term goal would be really to work with the same set of clients constantly? Because
Ultimately, you can have a bigger impact on someone if you work with them for longer. So
Yeah.
normally, on average, a client will work with us for about 2.5 years, which is great because we've got the opportunity to create behavior change and build habits and build routine and really encourage them on this journey, but also help them achieve way more than just the initial, when someone first comes in, it's about body recomposition, but then beyond that, it's about performance, it's about chasing their potential, it's about doing way more. So it's also that is great, but as well you will impact someone to the point that they've kind of achieved what they set out to do. But the moment someone will leave our program is just because they've lost vision. They don't really know what they're going what they're going to do next, but it's my job to explain or demonstrate or help them understand what their vision actually needs to be, but also based off their values, because you talked earlier about values and how business owners have similar values. There's loads of similarities, but also, you know, everyone has a different goal when they come into my program as well.
I think you're right. You know, someone could join any program and 2 years later, they've completely had a life change. You know, they've maybe got married, had kids and whatever. And then like they're looking at going, no, I can't do that program anymore. Do you know, do you think that happens on a cyclical basis for people? Like, you know, I always look at it as like you're wearing a different hat. You know, so, you know, when I first started my my first business, I didn't have any kids. You know, and then I went through different businesses, bought, sold, and then I have 2 kids. You know, but you know what I value now the most out of everything is, and this is how I sort of hold my successes, is that I have the availability to be around when they are around, and that's purely being driven on the basis of, I want to take my kids to school. I want to be there when they get home. I want to be there at the weekends. And that's only for now. And I think ultimately in 5 years from now, that's going to be different. I think I may have got the fuel back into my jets again. I'll be like, right, let's go. You know, because they're only young, you know, and that's one thing that I had focused on second time round, you know, with my second child, that for 18 months I had bought the business. So my daughter was just one, and then the 18 months after that, I didn't see her. I seen her daily, but because the business needed me and the business growth was astronomical, I always look at that going, I should have been around more. And I think, you know, as the likes of in your current scenario, you're due to get married next year, that might change your attitudes. And I think, you know, currently you're measuring yourself and going, well, I have clients and, you know, we're doing programs, we're doing workshops and speaking in these different gigs. But then you get married, potentially you have kids, and then you're looking at it going, well, like, I'm not going to do the gigs anymore. Do you know, I'm not going to do the workshops. I'm going to work with less clients because I like to be around, you know, that kind of thing. And as that, I think, you know, that's sort of potentially coming towards you on your junction. You know, because you're currently on this path, and it's just effectively it's just the Jonny Pierce show. But then when multiple aspects start coming in, then that's where you have to look at it and go, well, what's next? Because I've said this to my partner over the last probably year or so, that, you know, if I didn't have kids, I'd be away. You know, I'd be traveling every other week. Do you know, that kind of thing? Because that was one thing that I really loved doing, was traveling and spending time out of the country effectively, and then coming back again and working and doing vice versa. Because I'm in a scenario now that I do have that freedom. But I think, as we spoke about earlier, is, you know, you transition constantly as you just get older, and I think it's ultimately recognizing that what you kind of need at that time, you know, and you know, we look at the likes of where you've got to over the course of your sort of business period and personal life as well. And, you know, you had said that you feel as if that you've achieved more than you should have earlier than everybody else. But owning your own business is hard, and especially doing what you're doing, growing your own client base, that's hard, you know, because people ultimately have to buy in to you as a person, not just as a personal trainer. And what would you say has been then your difficult moments, you know, as you've grown as a business person, and, you know, developing your programs? Because I think my personal opinion on being an entrepreneur in general is that it's too glamorized. you know, there's this aspect of like you sell stuff online and you own a Lamborghini. I just think that's complete false. And you know, and it's all through social media. Like, running a business is difficult, and people don't realize how difficult it is until they've maybe got themselves involved. And there is definitely those dark days. And I think even like yourself, like you're working for yourself for a long time. Like, you probably had those dark days that you're just like, what am I doing?
Yeah, my biggest pet hate is whenever someone is delivering on a podcast like this and they put themselves on a pedestal and they act as if like everything's perfect. So I'm glad you've asked that question. And for me, challenges and barriers that I've been through, business is a lonely journey.
Yeah.
You feel isolated, you feel abnormal, you feel that you're doing all these different things that no one else is willing to do. You're putting in the hours that no one else is willing to put in. So that's challenges that went through. I think other challenges is COVID was obviously a challenge for every business, and I think being able to pivot, it ended up that the actual, you know, the situation was terrible, but the actual lockdown was the best thing ever to happen to my business because people started actually considering their health. But I was being able to be proactive and actually overcome that challenge. And one lesson that that's always stuck with me, and it was a mindset coach shared it with me once. They said you need to be able to take more from a challenge than it takes from you. And now every challenge that I go through, I'm like, right, what can I learn from this? And I know that's a basic principle, but it really helps me, and it really helps me drive forward. But there's always going to be dark days, and I know that there's challenges ahead. There's going to be challenging quarters in business. There's going to be challenging external circumstances that come up in my personal life, and there's going to be loads of different things. But I think it's a test of your character. It's a test of your ability to show up, and the people that can stay in business for the longest are the ones that are going to win the biggest.
I know, probably ultimately, and looking at themselves and reflecting constantly, you know, like, and you're totally right. Challenges happen all the time. And, you know, as in my business, you know, you're challenged probably on a weekly basis. And again, you have to be in that, you know, in that scenario and looking at it with the best version of yourself. And like, I think that's one thing that I've learned about myself as a business owner is like, I need to be presentable. If I'm going in and I give myself all of the sort of juice that I need before I go and do any business decision, I'm going to make the best decision. Instead of, for a long time, a lot of business owners end up just getting themselves so busy and so bogged down, and then the decisions are not always the best, but purely because they're being consumed by those dark days. And, you know, like COVID was there for everybody. And I think, as you've rightfully said, it was actually a benefit for you. And I would agree with you with one of my businesses. It was a massive benefit, you know, because it made people completely change their outlook on what they were doing with their lives. And you've probably worked with a lot of different people over the years who maybe were working in corporate and then they're now working for themselves. And I love seeing that. I love seeing, you know, I speak to business owners weekly and you know, on a daily basis as well. And there's people coming to me and they're like, the other day I was working with a doctor, 40 years, anaesthetist. And he was just like, I don't know how I fell into it. I never enjoyed it. But I really want to do leadership coaching. And I was like, right. Because they get a lot of coaching through the NHS and stuff like that there. And he was like, I love it. I really enjoy it. And I was like, okay, like let's try and explore that. And he was like, I just want to be clear, like I don't need the money. And I was like, even better. Because when there's very little risk for him, he just wants to do it out of pure enjoyment because he's retired. This is a hobby for him. He'll probably be happier now in the next 20 years of his life doing these kind of leadership programs than ever. Because I think what happens to a lot of people is they just end up going down that traditional path. Like, you know, you could have done, you know, school, uni, leisure centre, maybe management, and then that would be it. But I think, you know, ultimately, we as business owners, we are constantly looking at it going, what's next? Do you know, what's next for me? Like, you know, you probably are looking at your business now going, well, I'll exhaust this and then I don't know what's next. Because I think you can correct me as well, but I do think business owners end up getting bored of their own business because sometimes it can be a very rinse and repeat every week, every client, every business, every transaction. And do you find that has ever been the case in your business? You know, from delivering the one-to-one coaching aspect, and then did you get bored of that, and then you went online? And
I think it wasn't boredom, it was just seeing more potential in the next thing. So I was like, you know, obviously there's been transitions from personal trainer to then running Average in Stotwell to then running Built for Better Business, and it's just a natural cycle. But I think as a business owner grows and develops as a person, then they also change what they deliver or how they deliver things. So in my scenario, it was like I was already working with loads of business owners.
So you would be your current program, the Built for Better Business. There's going to be a graduation to that at some point.
I don't know. At this stage, I can't say. At this stage, I see it still going for the next 5 years, but in 5 years' time, that might change. And I think there will also be other offerings as part of the program. So I think that's the real change. Like, the main thing will always stay the main thing. I've been distracted by other shiny objects before in business and started things, and it just hasn't been right for me.
Yeah, because remember we were speaking before you started the food business, the ready meals almost, and it just did nothing for you.
It didn't excite me. It wasn't something that I really enjoyed. I wasn't really passionate about it. I wasn't really dealing with people. I'm a people person. I want to be working with people. I want to be supporting people. I want to be guiding people. And that was just like not working with people. Like,
but the interesting thing is like you tried it.
I tried it, and I'm glad I tried it, because at the end of the day, if I hadn't tried it, I would have been thinking like this year, being like, oh, maybe I should start it next year, because I don't know what could happen. But then I think that's the distraction, because in business you can get distracted from what you're actually good at by a shiny object that's presented to you, and you're like, oh, flip, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. But for me, it's been like, right, I'm good at coaching. That's what I've always done. I still want to stay as a coach, and I probably will be a coach for, I don't know, I'll probably listen back to this in 20 years and maybe say I'm not a coach anymore, but I might be a coach in some capacity. And now it's kind of transitioning into more like consultancy based stuff as well as coaching.
And I'm assuming then with the likes of the side project, as we call it, do you just feel as if that was just a distraction because you wanted to try something different?
I think the goal of it was to enhance the current client experience. So I was like, right, well, I'm already coaching all these people, and I was like, right, well, if all these people had these meals, it would make their lives easier and more convenient. But at the end of the day, who wants to eat a ready meal for the rest of their life? Who wants to eat a ready meal for lunch every single day? Yeah, they're great. I have nothing against them, and I will eat them from time to time when I'm short on time. But for me, when you actually think about the long and short of it, a client's going to work with you, or a customer's going to come to you for a month. Like, your cargo's great because the coffee's unbelievable, but there's a variety. And I love coffee, but I'm going to drink coffee every day. Yeah. But I'm not going to eat a ready meal every day.
You get bored.
So you get bored of it, and you're like, but coffee never gets boring. It's for whatever reason, maybe how it makes you feel. Or what would you say? Like, you're obviously running a coffee business as well.
Yeah, like I think, you're constantly challenging yourself. You're looking at new ideas all the time, because you're really, for my business, you're looking to really attract the same customers back in. For example, we will always bring out a new item every quarter, purely so that it means that if you're coming in every day and you're maybe getting a coffee and a bacon bap, you see the new shiny object, you're going, oh, look at that. That looks really good. Can I have that? That's all the goal is for that, is so that, and again, you can sort of translate that to what you're doing for your clients, is we need to keep our customers and clients entertained at all points, like something shiny, something new, so they keep coming back repeatedly for the core goods. And ultimately, when I'm looking at your scenario, you launched that food business, but it wasn't really a core product for you. The coaching was the core product, and when you look back on it, your clients probably didn't even want it.
No, and I maybe should have done a bit more market research and actually asked them, hey, would it suit you? And I remember asking a couple of people, and they were like, yeah, but it wasn't like they were going to order them for the rest of their lives. And that was probably 3 people that said, I might try them, but they maybe tried them for a week and that was it. So I think, I'm glad I'd done it, but also do
you see it as a failure?
No, I think it was good for me, and it was a good challenge, and I lost money on it, and I lost time on it, and all those things. But equally, if I hadn't have done it, it's an itch that I probably would have wanted to scratch at this stage, and then I would have been distracted on the journey that I'm on with Built for Better Business.
Yeah, so. And I think you do have to sort of scratch those itches as well. Like, we had that opportunity, it must be 2 years ago now. We took on a brick and mortar coffee shop, thinking that we could turn it around. You know, we had a good name ourselves, and we were looking at it going, yeah, we can do this. Like, we've a really good team. Completely different game, you know. And we did okay for about 6 months, and then it just nosedived, and we were looking at each other going, I have no idea why is this happening. Like, unfortunately, we had an opportunity to exit, and we exited and we left. And again, I don't really see that as a failure. I see it as really good learning on what, ultimately, if it was being selfish, I see it as really good learning on what I wanted. Because, you know, in my line of business, we've been looking at, I'm always looking at opportunities. I'm always looking at going, well, like the growth plan for cargo was always to have multiple sites. And anybody that I speak to and go, oh yeah, you own cargo, like are you planned for any more? Like, that's always the conversation. And then and like that, my answer was, yeah, like that's the growth plan, you know. But then after experiencing that sort of negativity with the additional unit, and it was the same team, so it was the same management, same staff, and they were being spread across 2 units. And after experiencing that, like, I've now changed my narrative on that. I've looked at it going, no, it's not really there. It's there if someone gives me £500,000 and I can roll out 4 or 5 of them, and I still get a salary, and my manager gets a salary, and there's enough cash in the business. But like, that's unrealistic, you know. But it's now not a priority for me in that business. And even though, like, me and my manager, we converse about it regularly, and we kind of look back on it, not with fondness, we look back on it as like a learning opportunity. Like, yeah, like, we just turn around and we're like, nah. If another coffee shop comes up, we're like, nah. And like, there's only, and the difference in the locations was 6 Mile, and both of us were just like, head melt. So I think, you know, we do, and we, as a business owner, I made that conscious decision, and I reflected on it quite a lot whenever, you know, it was kind of not going my way. It was going down the drain a little bit. I was looking at it going, I bought that purely so I could satisfy the staff that we had, because they were all asking for more hours, and I thought that we had a really good team and stuff like that. And I looked at that going, I would not make that decision again. I've become more selfish as a business owner, because ultimately I was the one that bore the brunt of the losses on that. And the losses were substantial for anybody, but we were in a scenario that, you know, the other business was propping it up and doing well. But again, I spent a lot of time reflecting on that. And, you know, we kind of, like, I had already exited the business in my head 3 months before we had done it anyway. But I think, you know, we do need to challenge ourselves as business owner. And like, you know, you rightfully did. You did a sidestep, and you opened up a food business that just wasn't your bag. You know, like, pardon the pun, but it wasn't gravy. And you're just like, no, I'm not interested. Like, I want to circle back and go back to what I really enjoy. And, you know, and as we sort of look at that, every sort of challenge that does come across our proverbial desk is something that is an opportunity to learn. And ultimately, like, it is a growth metric for us. Is like, well, everything that I've experienced as a business owner has definitely happened to other business owners as well. And I think the more we sort of talk about it on a one-to-one basis, or even in group settings, it makes it more relatable, and it kind of makes it okay. Do you know, like, you've not been in the unfortunate scenario of having to dismiss staff, and the first one I did was extremely difficult, but it ate away at me for about a week, because, you know, you're invested personally and stuff like that there, and you're looking at it going like, oh my days, I have to like get someone out of my business. But it was the right decision for the business. It was the right decision there and then. It was the right decision to, you know, because otherwise, if you don't remove that person, it's going to affect your business, and then effectively it's going to affect you. So that's where the selfishness comes in. Do you feel as if, like, you know, you have developed more as a person then in the last couple of years, and how you like to conduct your business? Are you saying no to things, or are you just constantly a yes man?
I think your business will only grow as quickly as you grow as a person, and as the business owner. You're the driving force of that, and you're the one actually pushing it forward. So I've definitely developed as a person, and I'm a much better business owner thanks to being a much better person. But I've done the work. I've invested in myself. I've worked on myself. I've worked with the best mentors. I've worked with the
And
best
do
coaches.
you think that's key? Do you think
100%.
like constantly investing into yourself is how you go to the next step?
Big time. I think like health and fitness is a good example. So I'm obviously helping people with their health, energy, and performance, right? And I know exactly what I need to do and when I need to do it. But I still have a guy that I work with every single month that keeps me accountable, because it's easy to drop the ball whenever it's just you, but you need to actually be challenged. You need to be told the truth. You need to be inspired, and you need to work with someone who is walking in the shoes that you want to walk in. Because at the end of the day, if you can go and invest in someone that's been where you want to be or is where you want to be, and invest in them and invest in you, you're most definitely going to develop, because you need to have skin in the game to actually progress. I think so many people will get information for free, but if you've got no skin in the game, you're never going to commit. You're never going to value the actual information.
I can't agree with you anymore, Johnny, because ultimately it does have to be that, like I always have found, even for myself personally, I found that like if I have skin in the game, then I make it work. Because my business purchase history has cost money. And like the biggest purchase was over nearly, well, let me see, five figure purchase, biggest one I'd ever done, and that had to work, because otherwise I was going back home and living with my parents. And that's where you have to look at it and go, well, if you put some money on the table, you will make it work whatever way, because otherwise that money's not coming back. And effectively, like, it does come down to the money effectively when you are looking at investing in yourself, investing into any business, even from the ground up, or buying a business. If you put something on the table, you have to make it work. But I also think that not everybody's cut out to that. I think some people are naive that how much work really goes into it. Building a business from zero is more difficult than buying a business. So what you've achieved over the last sort of 10 years, so to speak, is brilliant, because you had nothing and you've built it nice and slowly over the period of 10 years. And ultimately, just people see you now as successful Jonny Pierce, but nobody sees the reps that have been done over 10 years. Nobody sees the stuff that goes on. And I think, when anybody realizes that if they want to start a business, they need to be realistic with themselves. And any clients that I've worked with over the last sort of 6 to 8 months, like, I've just been very real with them, because I think it could be very easy for me to fabricate it and say that this is going to be easy and it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows, when it's really not. I remember speaking to a fella who wanted to open a fitness center with like sauna and steam room and then like cold room and all that. And I was like, well, why do you want to do this? Oh, like, because I want to be more available for my kids. And I was like, you're not going to be available for your kids for the next 4 years if you do this. And I think he was like kind of taken aback from it. And I was like, yeah, you won't see them, because when are your kids off? Oh, they get home at 4 o'clock. Yeah, you're going to be in there at 4 o'clock. You're going to be in there 4 to 11. And then I think he did eventually open it anyway. But like, I think he had convinced himself originally that's what he was aiming to do. And you like yourself, you've got yourself in a scenario where like you are probably relatively flexible, but you do treat yourself very strictly in a regular working week. It might be over 7 days, but you have to be strict. You have to make sure that every single day is utilized effectively, but you're doing it on your terms. And I think ultimately that is one of the key things as a business owner. And it's one thing that I am really passionate about, is that, yes, run a business. Yeah. One of the best things you can do is have your own business, because you're self-reliant and it's brilliant. But at the same time, you got to put the work in, you got to do the reps, and depending on what you want to achieve out of that at the back end, that's what your dividends are going to be. So like, you could be in a scenario in the next sort of few years, you'll get married, you may have kids and whatever, but then you'll be available for those kids on your terms, and like, that's a massive win. Do you know what I mean? And some people might not see that as a massive win, but I see it all the time for myself. Like, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy, is I get to take my daughter to school every day. I'm the only dad there. I'm looking at going, where's the rest of them? Because they're all away working. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same when you take them to the wee classes. You're the only dad there. And where are they? Because they're working. And like, that's something that I'm really interested in, because when I was a kid, like, my dad worked a lot. You know, he was working 5-6 days a week, and it was the same with my mum as well. She was working 5-6 days a week. You only really seen snippets, and it was always around this sort of the business aspect of how the businesses were functioning. And, you know, they always worked Saturdays. Do you know, that kind of thing? I don't work Saturdays. I don't work Sundays. I used to take a Wednesday off as well. But a lot of it is all about, really, for me anyway, and you might be able to agree with it, is turning around and going, well, like, I may look successful on the outside, but I still don't feel it. Do you know? Because I didn't have to actually work in my businesses for the last couple of years, but I'm sitting there going, you know, I could go back in, but people are looking, going, well, why would you? Well, because I kind of just like to keep my finger on the pulse. But, you know, success for me ultimately, currently, is being able to pick and choose what you're doing every day. And I think that I know that will change in probably 5 years. So like, what would you say, because on the outset, anybody looking at you and your sort of lifestyle is going, oh, Jonny's got it nailed. Jonny, he's away 4 or 5 times a year. He's got a nice house, nice car, you know, lovely wife or wife to be, and, you know, Jonny's really smashing it. But would you turn around and say that that's not really success to you? Or is that something that you're sort of always, the inner demons, as we call it, is like, well, like, you have everything, but then what's next?
Yeah, I've got to a point where I can now say I feel successful. So I'm really successful in my own right. And for everything that I've set out to achieve, I've been able to do it. But equally, you need vision. And I said that earlier, like, when you lose vision for where you're going, you're just going to move backwards. So it's being able to actually stretch your own vision and actually set a new target and set a new goal. But my success metrics now is being healthy, being fit, being a good partner for Lauren, being a good coach for all of our clients and inspiring them. It's being a good leader that people look to for inspiration. They're my success metrics, but the fundamental of all of that success is that I'm healthy, both physically and mentally, because at the end of the day, there's no point doing all this if I'm not. So
you're
that's
giving
the
yourself,
core
you're
value.
giving yourself a lot of time then? Are you getting yourself, like, you know, daily walks with the dog, playing football?
Yeah, like I move my body every day, but sometimes it's only for a short term. Maybe you've a 10-hour day and you've got a spare minute, but life's essentially about choices, and I just make different choices than most people are willing to make, because I know the importance of, whenever I have more energy, I perform better, I feel better, I've got more confidence, I'm going to show up way better, my business is going to grow, Lauren's going to be happier because I'm a nicer person to be around, and everyone else around me is going to benefit from that when I actually show up for myself. But equally, everyone has a choice to do that, but most people won't.
What do you think that is?
I think people don't realize the impact that it can have, because if you've got this thing that you could do, right, you could go to the gym today, or you could do a workout, or you could go for a walk, or you could eat a healthy meal, and the choice is whether or not you do that. But people understand, or maybe don't understand, or are unaware of the actual benefit of doing that. But also, getting in shape, being healthy, looking after yourself, the gap between where someone is right now and where they want to be from that point of view is filled with preconceived ideas as to how it might look. It's filled with confusing misinformation on the internet that they're not sure what they should and they shouldn't do. So I think that's probably the biggest barrier, and that's also then people prioritize other things, because it's all down to priority. I've decided that health is going to be a priority for me, because I know it's going to make me live longer, it's going to make me live a happier life and a more enjoyable life. But
probably ultimately it just makes you feel better.
People have never experienced the benefits, and they're like, right, well, I've never been there, so why would
that's
I do
something that I was missing from my lifestyle for a long time. And effectively, I think that's when I reached out to you, the likes of being on your program, was I just needed some sort of guidance at that point in my life, going, well, like, how do I sort of fix it? Because ultimately I was still very much going, no, but the business needs me, kids needs me, partner needs me, house needs me, and I was way down here. And eventually, like being on your program and having chats with you and stuff, like it sort of gave you that, you probably never set out to get that realization, but ultimately I've then become very conscious of what I'm spending my time and energy on. And ultimately I'm right at the top, whereas I used to be at the bottom. And, that took probably 2-3 years to get to that stage. And, it comes across as somewhat selfish, but I know I'm very selfish with my time, because that's the thing that I'm very much trying to protect, because for 4 or 5 years, my time was not mine. And that's what I lost for that length of time. And, effectively when you sort of looking at that, as a person, being selfish with your time, in my view, is okay. And like the likes of you're sort of balancing clients externally, so like they're probably contacting you, and then your time's being maybe filled in, but you've probably put in a lot of structure. You've probably put a lot of structures in place that don't lean into your personal life, so that you probably just have your contactability. Is it just like a Monday to Friday aspect, or
I think it's putting boundaries in place, but it's sticking to those boundaries, because whenever you're wired in a certain way, and especially whenever someone else is investing in our program, I have a duty of care to actually serve them. But if I over deliver in the form that I'm available 24/7, I'm going to under deliver the following day, because I'm just going to be on the verge of burnout all the time. So it's being able to actually integrate boundaries and be like, right, hey, this is my time with Lauren, this is my time with my friends, this is my time.
Well, you don't even need to respond.
You don't need to respond, but sometimes I'm sure other business owners can relate. When you get an email or a message, you think that you need to respond instantly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, definitely. Like that was me for a long time. And I think, we had conversations before about boundaries, and it was something that I really established probably about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. And it was something that, I had to do, because it was everybody involved across business and everything didn't see boundaries. Like, you would have, when you have different businesses and multiple staff, there's potentially 20 to 35 people contacting you, and it'd be very similar with clients. I was getting messages maybe 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and you're just like, that's not right. And I think as business people, we do let our boundaries slip initially, because I would imagine in your early days as a personal trainer, like, you didn't have any. And until you established those and started taking your time back, you were sort of very much, as you say, very close to that burnout phase of just being on 24/7 every single day.
Oh, I was there. Yeah, I used to do personal training sessions from like 6 a.m. till 10 at night.
Aye.
And then at the time I had started dating Lauren, and then
she was just like, who is this
yeah,
guy? This guy's mad.
but I would have like met up with her and went for a walk at like up Cave Hill in the summer at like 10 o'clock at night.
Aye.
So I was out till like 12, and then I got home for probably like 12:30, 1, and then I got up at 5 again. But I used to have naps in between clients. I'd bought this fancy car that I was really proud of, but I used to have to use it to have naps in between working hours to pay for it. So it was like, oh right, this isn't actually success right now. So that was whenever I was at a point in my life where I was on the verge of burnout, wasn't sticking to boundaries, whereas now I've actually created boundaries that, there will be the odd day you slip away from sticking to them, but most of the time I will, because I know it makes me perform better the following day.
Do you think that you had to get very close to the edge to recognize that?
Yeah, I think sometimes people use working too much as an escape.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, well, I can just escape my current reality by just working loads, because I don't really feel great about myself. Head in
the sand. Yeah.
Don't really feel confident. I'm low on energy. I'm not really feeling the best mentally, so I'm just going to work myself into the ground. And that's probably where I was then. Now I see that in other people, and I see them overworked to the point of trying to escape. And I think whenever you start a business or grow a business, there's two things that you're kind of doing. You're either running away from something or running towards something. So you're running away from insecurity, a lack of confidence, a poor financial situation, or maybe you're running towards this aspirational figure that you've always wanted to become. And it's being able to move away from, once you've ran away from all those things and achieved all that stuff, then you're just kind of running towards the person you become at the finish line. And it's not the actual, I think on the goals front. It's not the actual goal that you're working towards, it's who you become in pursuit of the goal that's the most important thing.
Do you think everyone can achieve what they're set out to do?
No, depending on the person. Like,
Yeah.
I think, you know, unless you have the right people around you, have the right support network, you've got a team that you've built out and you've led and you've inspired, like, you will get frustrated and it will all come crashing down in front of you. And that's why I'm such an advocate of like investing in myself and improving my support network. And sometimes it's a pay to play world. You might have to invest in support from someone who's in the shoes that you want to be in. But equally, that's going to already make you more committed, and it feels difficult at the start. But yeah, like, I don't think everyone will achieve what they're set out to achieve, because if they don't show up every single day, they don't look after themselves, they don't actually serve themselves before they serve others, like you just said earlier, like that's been the fundamental of the growth that you've been able to experience, and the reason you are where you are today is all the actions that you took 5 years ago. And that's what you said earlier. It's like, oh, Ben's an overnight success, but there is no overnight successes, because you showed up for 5 years up to now to be the overnight success.
Nobody sees it, you know, like, they just see what they see right there and then. Do you know what I mean? And I think, you know, ultimately we sort of, as we're very similar in the fact that we do value investing into ourselves. And I think a lot of people need to start looking at that as business owners, because we, like, ultimately we don't always have the answer. You know, we don't always have the toolkit to help everybody. You know, ultimately I'm looking to provide jobs for people effectively, but you know, I never really set myself out to be that leader, but now I really enjoy getting the best out of my team, and that's ultimately what my role is in my businesses now, is to get the best out of everybody. But also the fact that, you know, admittedly they're not going to be there forever, you know. So right now I don't really have a goal. You know, I'm kind of like, you know, we've talked about this before externally, but you know, I'm kind of just moseying along, because I don't really have a goal or aspirations for what's next. And you know, and I think I've came to that realization over the last sort of year, and I'm kind of uncomfortable with it, you know, because I don't have what's happening next, and that's something that, you know, it's something that I have to try and navigate myself, because I've never been in that scenario before. Because, you know, like, I've bought business, and then I had an aspiration of like, let's get another one. But then the last couple of years have been like, you know, we've sold two. You know, we sold two, got rid of one, and then I'm kind of like bringing that back down again to manageable. But then there's nothing on the other side. What would you say to someone that is, you know, on the fence about what's next for them? You know, ultimately you could have people who are in the career and they're just like, I can't do this anymore. You know, I speak to clients on a regular basis. There's a lot of people who are working in government jobs, and council jobs and stuff like that, and they're just like, I can't do it anymore. I want out. And they're looking at all these options of like leaving this cushy job to try something different. Do you think that everybody should definitely go and scratch that itch, you know?
Not necessarily. There's a lot of safety in being employed, but what was the question again? The first part of the question was along the lines of...
I can't remember.
We can edit this part out. It was something about, what would you say to someone who is...
what would you say to someone on the fence about making that kind of decision? You know, like, as someone who's
they've got no vision. Yeah, I know where we're at.
So I'll repeat that. So what would you say to someone that is on the fence and they have no real aspirations or vision of what's next?
Here's the thing, you don't always need to have a goal. So many people think that they need to have a goal to be working towards all the time. It's okay to fall in love with the boring and the mundane to get to a certain point, but I think the best thing that you could ever do is review the last 12 months of your life. What did you love? What did you loathe? What wasn't so good? Knowing what you know now, what would you do differently going into next year? And if there's elements of your life that you hate, so if you break it down into...
digestible chunks.
Yeah, so our core pillars in the program are body, business, balance, and brain. But you could break it down into those areas for your own personal life. So body, right? if you're uncomfortable with your health, energy, and performance, what do you need to do to change that? If you're uncomfortable with your business or your career, what do you need to do to change that? What's the awkward conversation that you need to have? Who do you need to actually speak to? And how can you create urgency around having that conversation from a balance perspective? If you're burnt out and you feel on the verge of actually just giving everything up, ask yourself this question: are you burnt out or are you bored? And then also the second thing I need you to do is actually think about how you can integrate more balance, how you can integrate more fun in your life. What are you doing for fun this week? And then from a brain perspective, it's mindset. Like, where are you falling down? Where is your fears? Where is your limiting beliefs? And I think everyone should have a mindset coach of some sort to actually work with them on a deep level, because transformation happens from the neck up. And I think, you know, I've had a mindset coach. I'm happy to share that, and it's absolutely changed my life because I dived into things that I didn't know that I could develop. And also, it's our brains, you said earlier about how our brains can be like a computer. So until you actually, and this is what the mindset coach shared, that she said to me, your mind's like a computer. Until you actually go into it and update it, a computer updates itself in the background, whereas your mind doesn't. So you actually have to go into your mind and actually update it with a support mindset coach, or maybe just having a conversation with another business owner.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And it's, you know, I've never heard that analogy before, but it makes total sense. Do you know, because, you know, we can be born and hardwired by our environment, and then it really is about developing constantly and investing into yourself. And, you know, it'd be great if we could just plug ourselves in and do a little update, do you know, and
or a little charge or whatever
you know, you just go, all right, I'm burnt out, okay, recharge, you know, that kind of thing. But ultimately, like, we're just living beings, and, you know, I think, you know, we need to continually look for that growth aspect. But I do find that sometimes we get a little bit lost too, you know, like you may or may not have got lost in your journey. And I think, you know, sometimes you get to a certain point, you're like, well, like, I don't want to do what is next for that type of business, or I don't want to, you know, develop more programs. I maybe just want to do more workshops, work one-on-one with clients and that kind of thing. But I think, you know, it's a constant journey effectively for everybody as a business owner, and even just a person, you know, because, you know, I always sort of look at it as, you know, I'm not the same version of Ben from 15 years ago. And I think sometimes in our own mind we still see ourselves as that version, but for us to actually take those next steps, we need to sort of just put that version into a drawer and forget about it, and also try and forget about the opinions of people 15 years ago and put that in there and live there forever. Because that I think that for a lot of it is, you know, one of the reasons I sort of wanted to do that podcast, or this podcast, was to get over that hump, you know, effectively, of my own restrictions. Because, you know, I too enjoy working with people. I too enjoy trying to get business owners at any stage of their business to get to the next step. But for me to spread that message, is I'm trying to use my education through my own pursuits and my own businesses and try and put that in a social space. But the social space is the hard part, because, you know, you put yourself out there and you're just like, oh, and then you're waiting for the negativity coming from your own externals. If someone says something from, you know, 20 years ago that you were in primary school with, that said something in a passing comment. And, you know, I think the growth aspect for everybody is that constant journey. And, you know, ultimately it's never going to stop. But I also do think it's okay to slow down. You know, at certain points of your life, it's okay to be a little bit slower, because, you know, I know I would rather be slow for a couple of years than try and do what I was doing for 5, 10, 15, and then you just completely fall off the wagon. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing.
100%. And it's not about the speed in which you're going, it's about the direction in which you're going.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, you know, the analogy I always use is, if you're starting a business or starting a fitness journey, and let's say you got out into your car today and tried to start the car in 5th gear, you would stall.
Yeah.
So it's being able to start in 1st gear, but also when you're on a car journey, when I'm driving home tonight and I'm going from Bangor to where I'm going, I think there's going to be roundabouts, there's going to be traffic lights, there's going to be roadblocks, and I'm going to have to shift up and down the gears, but I'm going to get to the direction or the location I want to get to, all being well. So the same applies to your business journey. And you know, it's being able to slow down to speed up in the future. You know, it's shifting back down the gear so you can get back up to fifth and really make some serious progress. But equally, you're not going to spend your life in fifth gear the same way I'm not going to drive home in fifth gear.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll probably crash into a hedge.
Yeah. That's a brilliant analogy, Jonny. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. Love spending any time I get with you. We do get to meet up quite regularly, but thanks very much for making the effort.
Perfect.
And I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.